What if a legal tiebreaker decides whether your family eats this week? Maya brings the human toll. Parents, seniors, kids, and Leo digs into the constitutional and procedural stakes. Stay with us. This shutdown fight over SNAP is fast, messy, and it matters now. Official statements say this is about separation of powers. Families say it is about dinner tonight. That clash is driving the SNAP fight during the shutdown.
And the judge said the quiet part out loud: this should never happen in America. Millions of people had to wait while lawyers argued over whether food counts as optional.
Hold on. Courts ordering agencies to spend money is not nothing. The brief said the order makes a mockery of the separation of powers. That is a real constitutional red flag.
Here are the verified facts. During the early November shutdown, USDA planned only a partial SNAP payment. District judges ordered full November benefits, citing contingency funds. Justice Department lawyers appealed, warning of irreparable institutional harm and a practical problem. Once billions go out, there is no easy way to claw them back. Late Friday, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson issued a temporary administrative stay. It pauses the full payment requirement until the appeals court rules, plus 2 days.
Meanwhile, the human clock kept ticking. We are talking about families, seniors, veterans, disabled folks. SNAP is groceries, not a luxury line item buried in a spreadsheet.
But process matters. One analyst put it bluntly: an admin stay can be a brief pause to let the lower court actually decide. Not the shadow docket, a breather for order, not chaos.
States reacted fast and unevenly. Wisconsin lit up cards at midnight, over $104 million to roughly 337,000 households. Others waited. Hawaii said it pushed payment data with haste. California, Oregon, Washington, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and more scrambled to issue full benefits. Some paid partials. Delaware fronted state funds to get relief out while the feds fought in court. That patchwork meant neighbors in different states experienced very different weekends at the store.
A legal commentator following filings hour by hour said $5 of $8 billion went out quickly. That undermines claims it would take weeks just to move partial payments.
Or it proves the point. Money did move fast, and that is exactly why the government warned there is no mechanism to recover it if courts later say the order overreached.
There are factual disputes. Some filings say reserves exceed roughly $4.6 billion. Others say about $5 billion. Monthly SNAP costs run $8.5 to $9 billion.
Either way, the math says reserves could cover the month. Opponents argued this is not fiscal incapacity, it is political choice. Hungry kids cannot eat a separation of powers memo.
Choice cuts both ways. USDA said other contingency pots protect child nutrition programs. Judges second-guessing those trade-offs is risky. Congress holds the purse, not courts.
One more tension. The verified record points to a Biden-era USDA. Some high-volume commentary framed it as a Trump administration fight. The legal issues persist regardless.
And the outrage persists because the stakes are visceral. People heard that a justice blocked food money and panicked. A commentator told his viewers it is not as bad as it sounds.
Because, again, it was an administrative pause.
Which still meant the last $3 billion hung up. If your pantry is empty, a 2-day pause is not academic. It is skipping meals and calling a cousin for help.
And if courts can force the executive to find $4 billion in the couch cushions, as the brief joked, that is not just groceries. That is a precedent about spending power.
Legal observers warned if compliance with a benefits statute can be called irreparable harm to the government, courts may hesitate to enforce future duties to deliver aid or protections.
Which flips equity on its head. The real irreparable harm is hunger. As one judge put it, the moral calculus is not close when families cannot afford milk by the weekend.
Equity also asks whether the government can run programs during a shutdown without judicial micromanagement. The brief warned the orders intrude on legislative and executive roles.
On the ground, we saw two Americas. In some states, cards pinged and shoppers exhaled. In others, clerks had to say, "Not yet." Delaware built a bridge with state money. Others could not.
That patchwork is policy by zip code. It rewards where officials sprint fastest and punishes where capacity or politics lag. National programs should not become scavenger hunts.
It also shows federalism working. States know their systems. Some moved, some waited for guidance. Delaware covered gaps. Local solutions did something while the appeal plays out.
Local patches cannot replace a safety net. A commentator said 5 of 8 billion got out in hours. That proves capacity exists when pressure is applied, not that courts should back off.
It proves urgency can cut corners, and corner cutting is how we end up with lawsuits about whether funds were lawfully tapped. Agencies need predictability, not whiplash.
Let's mark the open questions. How large are usable reserves, 4.6 or 5 billion? What remains for other child nutrition programs if SNAP draws deeply in shutdown weeks? What commitments did states make that will require backfilling later? And what guidance will USDA give to avoid a repeat if the funding lapse drags on into December?
Another pattern matters. One analyst tied this stay debate to a broader Supreme Court habit of using emergency orders that often hit vulnerable groups hardest. The harm is not abstract.
Careful. The commentary also admitted this was not the shadow docket, but a short admin stay to let the First Circuit work. That distinction matters if we want principled process.
Principle still has a human face. No one should be asking TSA for mercy because a passport marker or a benefit card tells the wrong story. Policy triage has casualties we can predict.
And courts should not be the only first responders. Congress must appropriate. Agencies must plan. Governors can bridge. If everything is an emergency, nothing is sustainable.
Back to the record. The district court orders required full November SNAP funding. The administration appealed. Justice Jackson's stay lasts until 2 days after the appeals court acts. Some states already pushed out full benefits. Others held. The legal fight continues. That is the official posture tonight.
And the moral posture is this. If the choice is institutional inconvenience versus hunger, you pick people. The administrative state exists to serve the public, not the other way around.
You also protect the separation of powers, or else today's compassion becomes tomorrow's chaos. The brief made that case, like it or not, and courts must weigh it seriously.
As Maya argued earlier, the 5 of 8 billion already distributed shows capacity. As Leo notes, it also sharpens the government's recovery concern if orders are later reversed.
Recovery is a budget headache. Empty shelves are a crisis. One commentator called it the difference between nutrition and malnutrition. That is the line we are towing this month.
And another line, who decides? Agencies say they must triage across programs. Plaintiffs say reserves are there to protect SNAP now. The judge sided with the people at the register.
The appellate panel will decide whether to keep the pause longer. Justice Jackson positioned it so the First Circuit can rule with dispatch before any further Supreme Court move.
Strategic or not, the pause had a body count risk. That is why several judges insisted on full payments using reserves described as roughly $5 billion, lives over ledgers.
And DOJ replied that commandeering funds this way creates lasting institutional damage. If that becomes the norm, future courts may hesitate to order anything at all. That cuts both ways.
States' stories fill in the human detail. Wisconsin's cards lit up at midnight. Hawaii said data flew with haste. Other states waited for federal green lights and clear legal cover.
Which shows how a shutdown turns every frontline worker into a constitutional actor. A clerk at a grocery store became the face of federalism for a mom with kids in tow.
And shows why Congress must not play brinkmanship with basic services. If lawmakers want agencies to pay in shutdowns, appropriate contingency rules that say so, in plain English.
There is also a narrative battle. Some commentators saw Justice Jackson as the villain for a day. Others said she is an institutionalist using a narrow tool to let the process work.
People heard blocked and saw empty fridges. Explaining an admin stay to a hungry family is cold comfort. That is why judges often stress the moral stakes in their orders.
Media framing matters too. Hot takes can blur key facts, like which administration runs USDA right now. Precision is not nitpicking. It is how trust survives a crisis.
Agreed. So here is a clean recap before we widen the lens. Shutdown. District courts ordered full November SNAP using federal reserves. Appeals filed. A temporary stay by Justice Jackson. Some states paid in full, others paused. The First Circuit will rule on a longer stay. The Supreme Court could be asked to step back in after that window. That is where we are.
Zooming out, the question is what counts as irreparable harm. The government says institutional injury. Families say missed meals. Courts must weigh which injury is truly irreparable.
And whose duty it is to fix it. Congress appropriates. Agencies execute. Courts interpret. If judges start doing triage with agency ledgers, incentives could warp fast.
Legal scholars warn a precedent here could ripple beyond SNAP to disability payments, health services, even safety enforcement. The shutdown turned theory into a grocery receipt.
And for once, the receipt is the better brief. It shows what happens when policymakers test people's margins. Hunger is not a bargaining chip, it is a harm that compounds quickly.
So is fiscal chaos. If reserves run dry for child nutrition because courts ordered an emergency draw, kids suffer there too. Trade-offs are ugly, which is why process disciplines them.
One commentator suggested Justice Jackson's brief pause might reduce Supreme Court blowback and nudge the lower court to move first. If so, the tactic still left $3 billion on hold.
And yet public pressure worked. States sprinted. Plaintiffs pressed. Judges demanded clarity. That combination got billions out the door. Organizing matters when law meets need.
Let's not make out the door the measure of success. The measure is legality plus durability. A win that cannot survive appeal is a boomerang that hits the same people on the rebound.
So what now? Watch for the First Circuit's stay ruling. The Supreme Court's administrative pause expires 2 days after. Then either compliance resumes or the fight returns upstairs.
Also watch the reserve math. If agencies argue there is less than 5 billion usable, demand transparency. If there is more, demand urgency. People cannot plan with foggy numbers.
And watch Congress. If members do not like judges refereeing this, write explicit contingency rules for benefits during lapses. Do the job so courts do not have to improvise.
Final thought before we close. This is not just a case about 1 month's benefits. It is a stress test of how the branches balance duty, discretion, and human stakes in crisis.
And of whether our systems remember who they are for. As the judge said, it should never come to this. The fact that it did is our syllabus for reform.
Reform should start where the power sits. Congress. Spell out funding rules for shutdowns, respect limits, shield core programs, stop outsourcing budget duty to emergency motions.
As appeals proceed, we will track what states do next and whether the courts recalibrate harm. We will also follow guidance to recipients who are stuck between pauses and promises.
If you are listening and affected, document what happens at the register. Those receipts and timelines become evidence when officials claim the harm is theoretical. It is not.
And if you are a lawmaker, remember, the cleanest way to avoid judicial drama is a budget that funds what the law promises. That is the quiet fix no court can order for you.
We will leave it there. The stay clock is ticking. The appeals court is on the clock too. Next time, we will know whether November's full benefits are a floor or a one-off reprieve.
And whether the lesson was learned, do not gamble with people's food. The interest rate on that debt is measured in stress and skipped meals.
Or whether the lesson was the same old one. Process without politics saves more people in the long run. We will see if anyone in Congress heard it.
We will keep sifting the filings, the state moves, and the human stories. Watch for that appeals ruling and the 48-hour window that follows. We will be back with answers. Until then, take care of each other, and if you can, help someone bridge the gap. The law will catch up. People need help now.